Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد. So now we've got to the part where we're covering now the conquest of Makkah. So this particular part of the Seerah is again one of the very few major milestones that really paints the picture in terms of what Muhammad ﷺ was trying to achieve in his whole era of his prophethood. And I wouldn't be doing justice to this particular story unless I covered this ayah. And this ayah is really the fundamental ethos of the whole story in regards to the conquest of Makkah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah An-Nasr that not equal among you are those who spent before the conquest, i.e. the conquest of Makkah, and did battle. These are higher in rank than those who spent and fought thereafter. But to all of these, God has promised reward. And sorry, this is mentioned in Surah Al-Hadid in verse 10. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making a very clear, distinguished categorization of the believers. And here he's mentioned that you're not all equal, that some of you that have been engaged in the dawah, in the deen, prior to the conquest. And why the conquest? Because the conquest was really the icing on the cake in terms of solidifying and really kind of breaking that balance in terms of the public opinion about the support of Islam versus prior to the conquest of Makkah, which is showing really how Muhammad ﷺ was the underdog. So taking that conquest, when Muhammad ﷺ and the Muslims went in to take Makkah, they were basically the power of the Arabian Peninsula. So what that means is, Allah Ta'ala is saying that really when I look at all of you, and that message is sent down to you via the generations, through the history, from the time of Muhammad ﷺ all the way to where we are today, what Allah is saying here is, how many of you will pick up Islam and absorb it, adopt it into your heart and run with it? Now, if you just look today and you look in your community, even don't even go that far, look at your own family, and you will see the disparity of those who are willing to accept Islam, those who are willing to, practice it, and those who are willing to just meet it halfway, and those who are just blatantly just rejecting it. In times of difficulty, really shows the iman that one has. You know, I was having a conversation with a friend today, and we were saying that it's amazing when things are really, really good in life, we never ever think about Allah. We just carry on and we enjoy the benefits that Allah Ta'ala gives. We have a great job, we have a great family, we have holiday coming up, we are happy with everything, we buy a new car, we've got X, Y, and Z. And as soon as we've got all of these things, we just want to enjoy them. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying them. But we always seem to omit Allah out of the picture. But when things start to go bad, then all of a sudden, you're seeking and you're looking and you're asking for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The true believer thinks of Allah in the bad times, and he also thinks of Allah continuously in the good times. So Allah Ta'ala is saying here that before the conquest of Makkah, the Muslims were the underdog. It was not favorable to be a Muslim. You shouldn't have that label or even, be standing up in front of your community having the label of a Muslim because you were deemed to be something alien, something different. Very similar to maybe what happened to us growing up in the UK in the 80s, in the 70s, and how, even being the wrong color, right, was deemed to be a bad thing. To speak up the fact that you're a Muslim in certain situations, putting yourself in the spotlight shies us away, forces us, i.e., and I don't know why I give these examples, but for a lot of us when we work, if you're in the office, okay, are you brave enough to say to your boss when they're going out for a team drink or they're going out for a team dinner or team lunch, I have to go for Salah or I have to go for Jummah? Do we cave in? Do we feel embarrassed about our beliefs and about our religion? So Allah Ta'ala makes it distinguish that those Muslims prior to the conquest of Makkah all of those people in Makkah who embraced Islam with Muhammad sallam, and there were not many of them. Think about your own town, whether it's Slough, whether it's Bradford, whether it's Birmingham, or it's Sheffield. Just imagine if the majority of the people, 90% of them were non-Muslims, and you were the only Muslims in that town, and you wanted to implement Islam, and you want to talk about Islam, and they did not like Islam. They didn't like what you brought because you were contrary to what they believe in. And then all of a sudden, you then become the underdog, you become the unfavorable, and you become the enemy. It doesn't become so attractive, the option. And so for those Muslims in Makkah, people like Abu Bakr Siddiq, people like Umar bin al-Khattab, Hazrat Zubair, Hazrat Ali, etc., all of these people who joined arms with Muhammad sallam and carried that dawah, they became unfavorable. And it became so bad in Makkah that they had no choice but to leave Makkah. At the early stage, some of them went to Abyssinia, and at a later stage, it got so unbearable that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the permission to Muhammad sallam to leave Makkah to go to Medina. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, here in this particular essence, that when the conquest of Makkah happens, guess what now? Allah ta'ala is giving you the victory. And when the conquest of Makkah happens and people start to come into Islam in drones in numbers, it's easy, right? It's easier for you. I was thinking about an example, right? I was thinking about when I gave the example before, I was traveling long time ago. We were traveling up to, I don't know, Sheffield or somewhere up north, stopped by a service station, okay? In those days, Islam was not very popular, okay? And I see a bunch of brothers, I think they were Tablighi Jamaat brothers, who at one service station, they got out of their car and it was time for Maghrib, and they stood out there and they put their mats out and they started to pray on a piece of, grass, right? Just outside of the service station, outside of the building. And there was only about 3 or 4 of them. And I could see many people, the non-Muslims, looking at them, making comments, and some of them saying things quite loudly for them to be, to make the Muslims feel uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, wow, these guys are praying. What do I do? Do I join and make myself feel uncomfortable? And it's all in the mind. So alhamdulillah, I did. I went up there and I prayed. I joined the 3 or 4 brothers that were praying to pray the Maghrib. Okay. But you just now imagine if that 3 or 4 now became 100, or that 3 or 4 didn't happen 20 years ago, it happened now, where it's very open Islam. It can be seen. There's masjids all over the place in every non-Muslim community. How easy is it for those people to do that? It's much more easier. So Allah's saying is for those people who made those sacrifices in the early stages, when Islam was unfavorable, that showed the element and that showed the strength of one's iman. It is easy to pray when you're in your home. But how easy is it when you're on a flight going somewhere and there's non-Muslims on your aeroplane? How easy is it to pray when you're at work and your team is going out for a dinner, or you have a very serious meeting to get up and then go off and pray? These are the things you've got to think about where your iman, and this is where this ayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, that not equal among you are those who spent before the conquest. You're not equal to the ones who came after the conquest. And you are the ones who did battle. You're the one who sacrificed your life, knowing that feeling that you weren't going to come back. You're the one who pushed the envelope, you pushed the boundaries. These are higher in rank than those who spent and fought afterwards. And that's the key thing. That's the beautiful thing about the whole conquest of Makkah. So let's talk about what happened here. So last week we talked about all of the events that happened after the Battle of Khaybar. So if we talk about some of the key milestones that happened just prior to the conquest of Makkah, Treaty of Hodeidah, let's start from that point. The Treaty of Hodeidah, it was a deal. It was a treaty that was made between the Muslims and the Quraysh. The Quraysh were the superpowers of the Arabian Peninsula. The Muslims were not a superpower, but they were an up-and-coming force. They were coming up the rankings very quick and very fast. The Quraysh already had an unexpected loss against these Muslims that basically destroyed their reputation amongst the Arabian Peninsula. People started saying, you're the superpower, and they're just a bunch of sheep herders. Yet in this battle, They completely annihilated you in the Battle of Badr, we're talking. In the Battle of Uhud, you tried to fight them again. And this time you were prepared and still you could not beat them. So the Treaty of Hodeidah came into place because it damaged the reputation of the Quraysh. Quraysh wanted that treaty to give them time to build their economy up because there was damage in their economy. Because remember, Makkah was south to Medina and they had to travel past Medina to get to areas of Syria, to Palestine, to do their trade. And if they didn't have good relationship with the Muslims, those Muslims in Medina could have stopped every one of those caravans coming up. A bit like if I'm in London and I've got a bad relationship with Birmingham and I've got to take the M4, the M40 and the M6 to go up to Manchester, the guys in Birmingham just stop up, come out on the motorway and stop me from going there and taking all my goods. So I've got to have good relationship in order for that to stop happening. Secondly, they wanted time to build up their reputation again amongst the Arab community to solidify their position again as a superpower. So one part of that treaty is what I'm going to focus on. One part of that treaty was that if anybody wanted to join in with the Muslims or the Quraysh, i.e. the other tribes, they can do so in the pact. So if you were a tribe and you were good friends with the Muslims, i.e. with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you can join in the pact with him and you will have peace treaty with the Quraysh. And there were other tribes that also joined with the Quraysh. Now I'm going to talk about two particular tribes, why all this problem started. The two tribes I'm going to talk about is the Banu Bakr and the other one is the Khuzar tribe, okay? These two tribes, the Banu Bakr, were allied with the Quraysh. They joined into the treaty, so they will not have any more arguments and fights with the Muslims, and they can join in the benefits as well. The Khuzar tribe were also, and they were mixed, there were Muslims and non-Muslims in the Khuzar tribe, but they sided with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they had joined in with that treaty as well. This treaty didn't last more than 17 to 18 months before things went seriously wrong. And just to give you a little bit of background, who were the Khuzar tribe? If you remember, in the very, very early stages of when we did going back to Seerah class number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, if you remember the very early stages, the Khuzar tribe were the tribe that came into Makkah when Hazrat Ismail was there. So remember, Ismail radiallahu anhu was there with his mother, with Hajar, and they were the first inhabitants of Makkah. The tribe that came and joined them was the Jurum tribe, and Ismail had married into the Jurum tribe. Eventually, the Jurum tribe were good people, and over a period of time, they lost their deen and they became corrupted. The Khuzar tribe was a new tribe that came in, and when they saw this corruption, they got rid of the Jurum tribe. So the Khuzar tribe are a very old tribe that that existed 1,000 years ago. Before, 1,000 years, as in 1,000 years before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's birth. So the Khuzar tribe now had a good relationship. One day, what happened was the Banu Bakr decided to attack the Khuzar tribe. And what happened was that they prepared an ambush against them in a place called Al-Watir, which is a well near there, just outside Makkah, but very close to the Banu Bakr area. And when the Khuzar tribe came there, the Banu Bakr at night ambushed them. But that wasn't where the problem really laid. Fine, Banu Bakr and Khuzar, we'll talk about what their issue was. The problem began was when some of the Quraysh, who were the real people who had the deal with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of the Treaty of Hodeidah, they decided, some of them, because of their hatred towards Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they thought, because it's the dark and because it's night, we can provide horses and we can provide weapons. Hell, you know what? We can provide ourselves in this war, and let's kill the Khuzar. And so they attacked them. And when they did attack them, eventually some of those Khuzar people, they escaped. Many of them got killed. And one of those people that, that had left and escaped from that ambush was a man by the name of Amr bin Salim. Amr bin Salim came riding back to Medina, entered into the masjid, and he explained to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a form of poetry what had happened. When Muhammad ﷺ heard this news, he said to him, "O Amr, you have been helped." And at that moment in time, these clouds started to come in the sky in the night, and they started going towards Makkah. And Muhammad ﷺ said, "O Amr, these clouds are bringing help now to the Khuzar tribe." Now, let's go into a little bit of a backdrop. So we're going to go a little bit into history. Why did the Banu Bakr attack the Khuzar tribe? In history, why did this happen to cause the Hodeidah treaty to break? This all stemmed off, and it always stems off because this is tribal warfare. Tribal warfare happened 1400 years ago, 2000 years ago, and that same stupidity of tribal warfare still happens today. It happens in Middle Eastern countries, it happens in the subcontinent regions, it happens in the UK when it comes to postcode wars, even with the youngsters, it happens everywhere. This tribalism is a disease because it doesn't unify people under a proper fundamental basis of religion or creed. So the reason how this all began was there was a man by the name of Malik bin Abad. Now, Malik bin Abad was part of the Banu Bakr tribe. One day, he traveled in deep into the region of where the Khuzar was. Now, this happened prior to when Islam came. Okay, this happened prior to when Islam came. So when he went into this region, the Khuzar tribe had some issues and they attacked him and they killed him. As a result, the Banu Bakr retaliated and they went and they killed one of the men from the Khuzar tribe. And you can imagine what happened after that. The Khuzar tribe then went and they attacked a bunch of the leaders from the Banu Bakr. Now, as this warfare began, and remember this tick for tack, it doesn't happen over a night or a week or 2 weeks. This goes on for years. Some of these tribes, they've had trouble for hundreds of years and they carry this fighting going on. You see this still in countries like Pakistan and even in some Arab countries where you have this internal bickering and fighting and family feuds and tribal feud that goes on for years, to the extent that you don't just fight, you don't even let their families marry into each other, you don't even do trade with them. It still happens today. And so when this occurred, then Islam eventually entered. And when Islam came into these people's lives, and some of them followed Islam, some of the warfare carried on, the tribal warfare carried on, until the Treaty of Hodeidah came in. And that is what put a stop to their fighting and bickering. So this was the reason. So Banu Bakr still had payback to give to these people. Their hatred towards the Khuzar tribe was so much that it overrid the fact that they had this treaty in place. So as a result now, this is what happened, that the Banu Bakr one night planned this attack. And they sat with the Quraysh, some of the Quraysh, not all of the Quraysh, some of the Quraysh, who were what we call the really right wing, total racist against the Muslims. They gathered up and they said, "We'll provide you with support." And they even joined in. They masked themselves up. It was in the dark and they fought. Many of the Khuzar tribe, they were fighting. Now, what happened was, because they were attacked at the area of Al-Watil, they were very close to Arafah. Now, if you remember, Arafah, you know, if you go there, there's Mina. As we as Muslims, we go there, this is a very sacred place. You cannot enter this unless you have your ihram or you have, you cannot kill anything or destroy anything, etc., etc. So, and there cannot be any fighting. So as they were fighting, they entered into the area of Arafah, which was sacred. Now, one of the men who was leading the Banu Bakr against the Khuzar was a man by the name of Nufal, bin Muawiyah. Now, Nufal, as he was going forward, his men said to him, "Nufal, you need to stop. You need to fear God. You're going into the sacred area. Even we don't want to go here." And he responded back, he said, "Today, God doesn't exist. And why are you complaining when you used to steal from this land in the sacred area? Now go in and take your rights from these people." So they didn't stop. They went into the sacred area and started killing off the men of Khuzar. Some of them escaped and they managed to get into Makkah. And when they went into Makkah, they ended up going into a man by the name of Budayl bin Warqa. Budayl bin Warqa, they went into his house and they hid. After everyone kind of disappeared, 40 of these men with Budayl bin Warqa made their way to Medina. Okay? And they went there and they told Muhammad ﷺ exactly what I mentioned before. When Amr was there, Amr was with them and said, this is what's happened. They've attacked us. Now, when this news came to Muhammad ﷺ automatically responded to them and said, I can see now Abu Sufyan is on his way. Abu Sufyan is on his way now to extend the pact and the relationship. What Muhammad ﷺ had done is that he sent a letter back to the Quraysh. And he said to the leaders of Quraysh, this is what has happened. We had a treaty, we had an agreement. Your men who were with you, the Banu Bakr, they attacked the Khuzar tribe who are with us, who are also part of the treaty. We want you, A, to destroy and finish your relationship with Banu Bakr. You will not give them any more support. And 2, you will pay the blood weight for every single man that was killed. This made them so angry. And we're talking about the extreme right wing of the Quraysh. This made them so angry that they said, we are not going to make agreement. Banu Bakr is probably the only one of the tribes that are left supporting us. And why is that? You see, when the Treaty of Hodeidah happened, Muhammad ﷺ took the opportunity to basically take Khaybar. And when he took Khaybar, many of the other tribes in Najd and Hijaz, they started to come more towards Muhammad ﷺ because the Jews, because they were weakened, they could not create any more fitna with the other tribes against Muhammad ﷺ. So this left Muhammad ﷺ with an open dialogue, relationship with these other people to spread Islam. So slowly and slowly, all these other Arab tribes that were not supporting Muhammad ﷺ and were supporting the Quraysh, or some of them were not supporting the Quraysh, but they definitely didn't like Muhammad ﷺ, they started now coming into agreements and peace treaties and trade agreements with Muhammad ﷺ. And therefore the Quraysh knew that their position was getting weaker and they need to hold on to as many tribes that can support them. And therefore they said, we will not agree to this. This made the other half of the Quraysh leaders angry, including Abu Sufyan. And Abu Sufyan knew immediately, this is a very serious problem now for us. That's something that we have to deal with. So at this point now, Abu Sufyan had no choice but to go and see Muhammad ﷺ. The Quraysh said to him, you need to go and you need to basically stop him from doing the inevitable. We now know that he's gonna probably try and attack us. So Abu Sufyan, he makes his way all the way to Medina. Now, remember I said to you, Budayl bin al-Warqa, the man whose house that all of the Khuzar came into Makkah. When Budayl bin Warqa went with the men of Khuzar to tell Muhammad ﷺ, Muhammad ﷺ said to him, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And they made their way back. Now remember, Budayl bin al-Warqa is a citizen of Makkah. So despite what he feels, he is still under the government control of the Quraysh. So when Abu Sufyan is on his way up and they're on their way down, so halfway on the motorway, you want to call it, on the desert, Abu Sufyan runs into Budayl. Now he sees him. Now remember, Abu Sufyan is the leader of the Quraysh, and therefore he's the leader of Budayl as well. And he says, where have you come from? Now Abu Sufyan had his doubts. And Budayl bin Warqa says, no, I was on the coast. I went with these men of Khuzar just for some other work, and I'm on my way back now. Budayl did not want to tell him anything about his discussion with Muhammad ﷺ. As he left and he went further down south, Abu Sufyan traveled a little bit forward north, and he stopped at a place where he saw Budayl's camel had stopped to basically use the bathroom. So where the camel had stopped and sat down, he looked at the dropping of the camels. And this is how intelligent these Bedouins are. Abu Sufyan, he looked at the droppings and he could see the seeds of the dates because they don't get digested. When he inspected those seeds, he could see that they were the seeds of the dates that are only ever grown in Makkah. This camel had just eaten them. So he knew straight away that this man, Budayl, has already told Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam what's happened. That's just made his situation a little bit more difficult. Nevertheless, Abu Sufyan had a job to do. He had to go and basically reenact that pact and reinforce it. So he makes his way into Medina. When he arrives into Medina, he goes to see Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that I have come to reinforce our pact and to extend it. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees Abu Sufyan, and all he does is turns his face and ignores him. Abu Sufyan tries to interact with him again, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was just not interested, didn't want to see him, didn't want to talk to him. Abu Sufyan then thought, if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not going to talk to me, then I need to talk to his close companions, get someone to intervene, because I cannot go back without having made some progress. Otherwise, the Mecca is going to be in jeopardy. So what does he do? The first person he goes to see is his daughter, Habiba. Habiba is the wife of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you remember the history? Let me explain to you. Habiba became Muslim in Makkah at the very early stages. And she was married. And she left in the first wave to Abyssinia. So when things became very difficult in those first 13 years, she was the part of the first wave that went to Abyssinia. When she went to Abyssinia, unfortunately for her, her husband, he basically left Islam. Some say that when he went to the land of the Abyssinians, who were the Christians, he got influenced by them. And remember, look, they are new Muslims. Okay, they are new Muslims, and the new Muslims, you can't just expect them to take the Shahada and leave them to it. An interesting point. I was talking to Haroon about this, and Haroon mentioned this to me, which is a really interesting point. He said, IERA did a talk once at the masjid, and what they had said is that they were giving these stats. And what they explained was that, do you know that the number of non-Muslims, when they become Muslims, do you know how many of them actually remain Muslims? And people didn't know. And they said, well, let me explain to you. Those new converts, only about 20% of them stay to the deen, the rest fall back again. And the reason for that is because they don't get the support and they don't get the guidance that they need from the Muslim Ummah, something which Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very strong in providing for these non-Muslims. You imagine, for a non-Muslim, whether he's from a Christian family or from a Hindu family or from a Sikh family, you imagine when they embrace Islam, you're all happy. MashaAllah, sisters become Muslim, brothers become Muslim. This is great news. And you go off and you tell your whole family and your friends and you celebrate that. Whilst this brother and this sister go back to their family and they have to face the music with their family. Their family doesn't, their father doesn't talk to them, their mother doesn't talk to them, the brothers and sisters become violent with them, the extended family become violent with them. And we forget about teaching them about Islam. That is when shaitan comes to you the most, is when you newly come to Islam, or when you embrace Islam again, or you become stronger in your Islam. That's when shaitan will come to you to try to bring you away from it. He will make your life difficult for you. So when they've come to these difficulties and they face these challenges, shaitan will say to you, give it up. Why do you want to upset your mother? Why do you want to upset your father? Why do you want to break your relationship with your brothers and sisters? Leave Islam. Look what it's doing to you. And so a lot of people, they lose it. So you can understand and appreciate for this man that they're newly, now he didn't stay in Makkah, he went with his wife and he just got influenced by other people. As a result of that, as a result of that relationship, that marriage became very weak. And at some point, the husband actually died. When Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam found out that her husband had passed away, then from Medina, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam proposed a marriage to Habiba, the daughter of Abu Sufyan. And why did he do that? Because he knew that if he married in with Habiba, maybe this will strengthen the relationship with Abu Sufyan because he was the leader of the Quraysh and the leader of the polytheists, the leaders of the idol worshippers, that this is one way of bringing them closer in terms of towards Islam. And this is where the negus actually done their walima and their marriage whilst he wasn't even there. So Habiba actually returned back to Muhammad ﷺ for the first time after the nikah was done. So they hadn't seen each other. And by the way, that's not the evidence to say why the young lads over here get married to girls over there and don't see them for 7 years, right? Until they get their visas. That's not the reason, right? That was the unfortunate situation that Muhammad was in Medina and they were not allowed, they didn't have the communication. So eventually when she did return with Jafar bin Abu Talib at Khaybar, that's when she was with Muhammad ﷺ. So Abu Sufyan now comes to Medina. Habiba is now living in Medina and he goes to see his daughter. He hasn't seen his daughter in nearly 13 to 15 years. Right? He hasn't seen her 13 to 15 years. He walks in and there's a bistar, there's a bedding, right? Or a rug or a mattress. She sees him and she realizes he's about to sit down. She quickly grabs the mattress or the rug and she rolls it up and puts it away. Abu Sufyan's a little bit shocked. It's my daughter. And he says to his daughter, I'm not really sure whether you roll that rug up because it's not worthy, because it's dirty and I should not be sitting on it, or you've done that because I'm not worthy of sitting on that rug. And she responded back and said, you are a polytheist. You're an idol worshipper and you do not deserve to sit on the Prophet's mattress. This is her response to her father. Now, you need to understand the backdrop behind this. You have to remember that when she became Muslim, what did her father do to protect her in Makkah? Nothing. She had to leave. She had to leave her whole family because she couldn't even get that protection from her own father. So she knew the enmity that Abu Sufyan had with Muhammad ﷺ. And Muhammad ﷺ is her husband and she loves her husband. Not only is Muhammad her husband, he's the Prophet of Allah. So, and you're the enemy. So she said, you're not welcomed here. So this upset Abu Sufyan greatly, and then he left. Then he went to go see Abu Bakr Siddiq. And he said to Abu Bakr Siddiq, Abu Bakr, I need your help. I need you to speak to Muhammad for me. And I want to extend this relationship because things are going to go very bad. Abu Bakr's response was, Abu Sufyan, there's nothing that I can do. Whatever decision Muhammad ﷺ has made, he's a prophet of God. We don't challenge it. He left him and then he goes to see Umar bin Khattab. He says to Umar, I need your help. I need you to intervene. I need you to talk to Muhammad ﷺ about our pact. Umar bin Khattab, the harsh that he is against the polytheist people, against the idol worshippers, he says to Abu Sufyan and looks him dead in the eyes. And he said, if I had only the ants on this world left as weapon to fight you, he goes, believe me, Abu Sufyan, I'll use every single ant to fight you and your men. And Abu Sufyan was taken aback by his response. And he said, may you be cursed. And then he left. Then he enters the house of Hazrat Ali. And there Hazrat Ali is in his house. And the daughter of Muhammad ﷺ, Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha, she is there with her daughter Hassan. So she's playing with him. And Abu Sufyan says to Hazrat Ali, Ali, you are the closest to me in relationship, because you know that Abu Sufyan, Hazrat Ali, Muhammad ﷺ, they're actually from the same sort of family, right? He said, you're the closest of all of everyone in Medina in terms of family. I implore you, I need your help. I need you to talk to him. Now, Hazrat Ali was a little bit more softer with Abu Sufyan. He said, look, I sympathize with you. I understand your dilemma. But you need to understand something, Abu Sufyan. When Muhammad ﷺ makes a decision, we don't challenge it. You do understand he's a prophet of God. He does not speak from his own desires. He doesn't say what he wants to say just because he's had a dream or he just conjured it up. He gets it because he gets instructed by Allah. Challenging the Prophet is challenging Allah. We don't do that. Then he looks at Fatima and he says to Fatima, why don't you intercede for me? Don't you want this son of yours to become a leader amongst all of our tribe, that he will be the one that created and mended that relationship. Fatima radiallahu anha said to Abu Sufyan, he's too young to speak. What's he going to do for you? Abu Sufyan looked back to Ali and he said, look, I'm in a desperate situation. What do you advise? What can I do? Nobody wants to help. Hazrat Ali says to him, look, the best thing I can tell you, the best advice I can give you, you're a leader of your tribe. Go out there, make a big announcement, and give the people the confidence that they're not going to be attacked by your people ever again. He says to him, Abu Sufyan says to Ali, do you think that will work? Ali looks at him and says, no, not really, but what choice do you have? You might as well try something. So Abu Sufyan goes out. He goes out to the center of Medina. He calls upon everyone and he says to everybody, I guarantee protection from my people on you. I will guarantee your protection from my people. And people just ignored him. And then he left. And he made his way back to Makkah. When he arrived in Makkah, he met up with the Quraysh leadership. And they called him into the Darul Nadwa, which is their parliamentary, just outside the Kaaba. And they sat down. And they said, Abu Sufyan, tell us what happened. Did you deal with the situation? He said, look, I went to see Muhammad. He completely ignored me. I went to see Abu Bakr. He said, there's nothing I can do about it. I went to see Umar. He was blatantly rude and aggressive to me. I then went to see Ali. He told me the best advice he can give me is go out there and say to the people that I will give you protection against our men. They looked at him and they said, you know what? You're a failure. You've achieved absolutely nothing. Then Abu Sufyan went home and then his wife said to him, so what happened then? He explained the same thing. And his wife said, you've achieved absolutely nothing. You wasted your time. You're good for nothing. So now Abu Sufyan is in a dilemma now. And the Quraysh are in a dilemma. What is going to happen? So now Muhammad ﷺ in Makkah hasn't told anybody what his plans are. He tells the people around him, get ready and prepare yourself for war. Yeah, get your arms ready. But he never told anybody where and how. So the first thing Muhammad ﷺ had done is that he sent some scouts going north, not south. Medina is here, Makkah is in the south. He sends the scouts going north. So when people start seeing them going to the north, they say, so maybe Muhammad ﷺ is preparing another attack against the Arab tribes with the Roman Empire. That's what's going on, because we can see these guys going up there, about 8, 9 of them. Then Muhammad ﷺ says to Hazrat Aisha, his wife, he says, Aisha, prepare food. Yeah, I'm going to go on a journey. So she's in there and she's kneading the wheat and she's preparing the bread, etc. He goes off and he goes to the masjid. Abu Bakr Siddiq comes behind him and enters the house, sees his daughter Aisha. And he says to Aisha, why are you preparing food? Is Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, going somewhere? She kept quiet. She didn't know anything. Is he going for battle? She kept quiet. Don't know anything. Is he maybe going north? Is he going to fight the Arabs with the Roman Empire? She kept quiet. Oh, maybe he's going to fight some other tribes in Najd. Kept quiet. Maybe is he going to Makkah to fight them? She kept quiet. And then Muhammad ﷺ returned back home. And then Abu Bakr Siddiq said, and this was on the 11th hour, the last minute before we announced it, he said to Muhammad ﷺ, why are you preparing this food? Are you going to attack the Meccans? And he said, yeah, we're getting ready to go get them. Then Muhammad ﷺ went out and he made an announcement. When he made the announcement, he said to people on the very last minute, get yourself prepared because we are now going to Makkah. Now, how intelligent Muhammad ﷺ, that for many days, even a week or so, he didn't tell anyone. He just told everyone, start preparing. Now, in the preparation of war, if you're a family member, you're a father, you're a son, you have to prepare everything. And you've got to tell people as well, your family, that when you go to war, sometimes you never come back. So you've got to give people that time, right, for preparation. Plus, it was a very big army he was preparing. We're talking about 10,000 men. So when he gives this news out and he tells everybody, we're going to go to Makkah, people start to get ready. Except for now, a situation occurred because one Sahabi, Hatib bin Abu Balta, and he's a very famous Sahabi, right? Very famous story. Hatib bin Abu Balta hears this from Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Immediately he goes home, he takes out a piece of leather and he starts to write a message. He folds up that piece of leather, he goes to a woman, he says, here's some money, take this letter and go to Makkah and go give it to the Quraysh. She's gone. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam receives revelation from Angel Jibreel that Hatim bin Abu Balta has written a letter giving intel about the Muslims going to attack Makkah. Go intercept the woman who has reached such and such place 12 miles outside of Medina. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam calls Hazrat Ali. He calls Zubair bin Awam. He says, and Al-Miqdad. He says, go out to such and such place. You'll see a woman in a howdah, the box sitting on the camel, and stop her. Search her. She has a letter. Hazrat Ali, Zubair, Miqdad, they ride out. 12 miles outside of Medina. They see the howdah. They stop her. They pull her off. And Hazrat Ali says to her, hand over the letter. Hazrat Ali is very strong and very stern. She says, I don't have a letter. What are you talking about? He says, don't make me strip you down. Hand over that letter. She knew, looking in the eyes of Hazrat Ali, he was not messing around. So she undid her hair, because this is where she hid it. She tied up her hair, she hid the letter inside her hair, and she pulled out the letter and she gave it to Hazrat Ali. Hazrat Ali rode back to Medina, took the woman back, went to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Amongst Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was all the Sahabi, the close companions. And he opened the letter. And in that letter was very clearly explained. Hatib bin Abu Balta sent a message to the Quraysh saying that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is preparing an army and he's going to take Makkah. And he's going to win because he's a prophet of God. And there's nothing you can do to stop him, because if Allah ordains it, he will take control. So when Muhammad reads this letter, he looks at Hatib and he says to him, why did you do this? This is treason. Why did you give intel information to the Quraysh about us? And immediately Abu Bakr Siddiq became so angry. He said to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, let me take his head off. He's a hypocrite. Hatib responded back to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said to him, O Messenger of Allah, I did not write this letter because I'm a kafir. I did not write this letter because I'm a hypocrite. I did not munafiq. I did not like this letter because I don't believe in Islam and that I don't love Allah and I don't do anything. He says, look around you. He says, all these muhajiruns, Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar, Ali, etc., every one of you have noble standing in Makkah. Amongst the Quraysh, you have noble standing. You got family there. Abbas is there, your uncle. Who am I? I've got no relationship. I've got no standing with anyone. No relationship with anybody. All I have is an old mother that is there. I'm not telling them to prepare themselves to fight you. I'm just giving them indication that we're coming, just so that I can gain favor from one of them, so that when we do turn up, they will not try to kill my mother. They will say, at least let her live, because Hatib at least gave us inside information. Because I've got no standing in Makkah whatsoever. I have no relationship with anyone. I'm an outsider. Yet Umar Khattabi still was angry. He said, I'm going to cut his head off. Muhammad said, wait. He speaks the truth. And Umar, how do you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't looked down upon him and has already said, it doesn't matter. Because you fought at Badr, I have forgiven all your sins, no matter what you do from this point onwards. And you see this love and affection. Now, going back to my very first point about the ayah of the Quran, that not all of you are the same ranking. What rank do you have to be for Allah to forgive all your sins because of one good deed that you've done? Is irrelevant what you do after that. Look at that. What kind of person do you have to be? And what do you have to achieve to get that kind of blessing from Allah, that no matter what happens from this point, because of that one sacrifice, that one pushing of your boundary, going over the line, pushing yourself. And remember, it's not doing the same act. You doing something, I do something, we could do different things. For one guy to read namaz could be very easy. Doing salah could be very easy. But for a person who's never done it, if it's really difficult for him, the hasanah, the reward he gets will be 100 times more than the guy who finds it easy. Each and every one of our actions and our challenges are measured differently. I'm saying to you, find your challenge. So many times I've said to brothers, if you're sitting comfortably and your life is easy and you don't come out your comfort zone for the sake of Allah, you're not pushing the boundaries. And if you don't push the boundaries, the reward is not that great, because you don't show your element of sacrifice. You don't show what you can do. If Muhammad Sallallahu and the Sahabi are their prime examples, show me one point in their life where they were always sitting comfortably. Muhammad Sallallahu could only pray the 12 extra sunnah in his salah because he couldn't do anymore, because he was constantly either in battles, he was traveling, he was negotiating, he was doing dawah, he was in precarious situations. What situation was he in that even his salah had to be limited because he had to do so many other things? So if you want to be that kind of person where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you the ability to really walk into paradise like that, then ask yourself the question, where's your boundary? And have you gone beyond that boundary? And that's really what it comes down to. And so Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard this from this man, he said, who are we to judge? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already made his call on this man. Those who attended the Battle of Badr, that was the point of showing what true Iman was about. Because not one man entered into that battle that was a hypocrite. Not one man that entered into that battle that didn't have an ounce of Islam. These people that entered were full of Islam. Their hearts were overflowing with Islam. 330 men against 1,000 soldiers who were armed up and fully trained, who didn't have a single chance to win that war. Why do you think they went there knowing that they were going to win? They went there thinking that they were going to all die that day. Why do you think Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a dua that day, where he raised up his hands to Allah and he said, Ya Allah, if today we all die, then the spreading of your religion will stop. Give us that victory. So they all went there knowing it was, in theory, like a suicide mission. They're going to die. So the only kind of person that is willing to make that sacrifice is that person who has decided in his mind, I don't care about the dunya anymore. My wife, my children, my mother, my father, as much as I love them, the greatest good is what's going to happen afterwards. And they got that. And the question is, do we get that? Do we understand that? And until we get that, we will forever be challenging ourselves. And we will always have that doubt in our mind that when that day of judgment comes, will we be the ones that will be chosen to walk through that door? So inshallah, I'm going to leave it at that. And inshallah, we'll carry on for the next part of the Conquest of Makkah next week. Jazakallah khair. And I'll see you then. Assalamu alaikum.